Okay, what we have here is a pencil drawing I've done on a 11 by 15 sheet of watercolor paper. It's 140-pound Arches handmade watercolor paper, cold press, which means it has a rough texture. I'm working with Daniel Smith watercolor pigments, and the reference photo that you'll see here in a minute is a photograph taken by one of my two sons on their senior trip to Italy. I've never been there myself, but I instructed them when they went, take a lot of pictures and maybe I can use some of them for paintings. So that's what I'm doing right now. I looked at the photo and did this loose drawing, and you see the people on the street there. And unfortunately I didn't draw them dark enough, because when I cover the street with color, it's going to cover up my drawing. I'm going to have to reinvent the people as I paint them. So that's one thing to learn right now, is draw your people maybe a little darker with a lead pencil. First thing I'm going to do is wet the paper really good with clean water. There you see my reference photo to the left. And I'm going to put the colors, the overall colors I see, in wet and wet, and try to cover up all the white paper as thoroughly as I can. The white paper is a intimidating thing for artists. So I'm going to cover it up with color, looking at my reference and putting the colors where they generally are, the way I see them. So I'm using some new gamboge here, kind of covering the sky quickly with a light yellowish color, now an orange color with red and gamboge mixed together. My overall plan for this painting is quick impressionism the whole way. Try to keep a general quick feel of quick brush strokes and colors blending together in that wet pigment on wet paper style, and only putting in some sharp details near the end of the painting. So I'm mixing my grays now with a combination of warm and cool colors, some ultramarine blue and some indigo, and some red. I try to keep a paper towel in my left hand to absorb any big puddles that don't need to be there, or any colors that run down where I don't want them to run down. I can soak them up with a paper towel. What I've done here is this recording is speeded 4 times, so it's the movements and the painting is going 4 times faster than in reality. I tried it first 8 times, speeded up, and that was a little too fast. I wasn't having time to say what I wanted to say. And what you can do on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the gear icon underneath the video. There, it's settings, and you can make this go faster yourself. Even though it's already sped up 4 times, you can speed it up some more using that settings button, and you can still watch it, and you can hear me talking. I'm just talking a lot faster. I'm recording the audio separately from the video, so my audio is right now is not sped up. This is my unsped up voice you're hearing, but as I said, you could speed it up using the settings in YouTube, or slow it down. That'd be funny. Trying to keep the wet and wet look with these little windows in the side of the building. They have soft edges. The paper dries out pretty quickly, even if you soak it good on one side. And if you really want your paper to stay wet longer, I can't do it because I've got this paper taped down, but if you want it to stay wet longer, you soak it in a bathtub on both sides, submerge it in bath water, and let it sit for a while. Then you lay it on your drawing table without taping it down, because of course the tape won't stick to wet paper. And it'll stay wet a lot longer. You can do more wet and wet techniques for a longer period of time. But I'm using a spray bottle that sprays a fine mist to keep it wet when I need to, if there's any places that dry out too quickly. As I finish up this right side of this building front, it starts to look really cartoony, like an old 1950s stylized background. And I go back and kind of fix that by doing some wiping out techniques and making it more variegated and more uneven. You know, right now it's a little bit too even looking, like an outlined cartoon drawing. But I'll change that as the painting progresses. Try to fix it. Watercolor dries lighter than when you put it down. You put it down dark and it dries lighter. And as many years as I've been painting, I've still not mastered my ability to know just how much darker I need to paint so that it'll dry as dark as I want it to be. So I still have to go back and make things darker a lot of times. Actually, as I'm looking at this video, I see that the actual video is a little bit too light as it applies to what it really looks like. The video is just a hair lighter than the painting really is. In other words, the darks are darker in reality. I think at the last clip of this video, I adjust that to be more realistic, but it's pretty close as it is right now. There I go back in darkening things that painted in They look dark when I painted them, but now they're too light. Now I'm going in to try to variegate this right side of the buildings on the side of the street, and to make them more realistic looking or less cartoony. And now I'm darkening more things up. I think I'm getting close to the stage where I'm going to start rendering the people walking. Now, more variegated bits and bobs, trying to make it look more interesting and less cartoony. In real life, things are just incredibly variegated, and you try to get that into your paintings to add a layer of realism. Okay, here comes the people. See the people in the photo reference up there to the left, top left. I didn't copy them exactly. I just kind of looked at them and put them in different places just to fill in all the spaces where I felt they ought to be a person there, ought to be a person here. Interesting thing about the perspective of people on a street. You would think that the closer they get to you, they'd be taller, but a good rule of thumb is to when you're drawing people on a street, the top of their heads will all kind of line up with each other, no matter how close they are to the viewer. Keep their top of their heads about the same height. And I'm still trying to be very loose with these figures, drawing them quickly. I went to a workshop one time where the teacher was Tony Couch, well-known watercolorist, leading a workshop. He says he follows the UOW technique for drawing people. He draws a big upside down U. Then underneath the U, he puts a slim W for the two legs of the person, and then a little O on top of everything for the head. And that's his basic watercolor person shape. Pretty handy to remember that. It really works. Well, that was pretty quick, all those people. Now the fun part's going to be putting their reflections underneath them. Yep, I'm wetting the paper again so I can do some soft reflections underneath the people. I don't think it might not show in the video, but after I do these reflections, I come back later and darken them again, just like I've been talking about. I have to darken things because didn't make them dark enough to start with. They dry lighter. But that's pretty cool. I love wet streets reflections, although the street's not really wet, it's just kind of a shiny surface. And I'm going to put some texture on it in a minute. It'll look less wet, more like a real street. Just with some quick strokes to add some tiles. I'm going to come back with the edge of my brush with a little bit of paint in it to get some rough texture to the street, just rubbing the side of my brush to get some texture. Now I just squeezed a little white gouache onto the tape there, use my tape edge as a palette. I'm going to use some white gouache to put some little highlights here and there. Change up some of the clothing. Your finger's a good thing for smudging and softening things. Use your finger to smudge when you need to. Change this guy to have a white shirt. And what else? Little white pants. Is that what I did? I think I'm going to put a red or pink scarf on this lady in the middle. Or no, blue scarf. And there's some reflected windows with reflections in them. I think there's some little spotlights. Oh yeah, I was adding a little white to the street along the edges of some of the tiles to give the tiles a little 3D look. I love doing that. And a few little touches here and there. Little spotlights or street lights. And that's basically it. So, yeah, I adjusted the lighting a bit in the video. It's a little darker. Sign it and take off the tape. Sign it and date it, 2024. Okay, there it is. Hope you like it. Thanks for watching.